Hello, I'm Chris Trujillo. I'm the production designer on Stranger Things. I've been with the show since the beginning and we are in our 5th season. I'm excited to show you guys around. We are standing at the entrance to the Pain Tree. This is one of the most unique sets we've ever built and one of the most epically gross. This is our entranceway. I like to call it our esophageal hallway, where we enter into the belly of the beast. All of this is an enormous foam sculpture, essentially, with metal infrastructure. What we've done essentially is physically realize the concept art creature vision of Michael Marr, who's our head concept designer. And this, in season 5, is where we find Vecna puppeteering his monster, essentially. We have an incredible sculptural team this year. Alex Sherrod is our lead sculptor. We took all of our cues from organic matter. We did some very deep dive, disgusting research into internal organs, flayed bodies, you name it, to figure out how to achieve all of these deeply unsettling organic textures and to give this sense of being inside the body of a creature. Season to season, we've kind of upped the ante on the horror, and we've also played with different genres of horror. You know, I think the first season was maybe more Spielbergian, and then we started to veer a little more John Carpenter. Things were getting a little more terrifying, and we all love David Cronenberg's films and that sort of body horror vibe. And I think always staying within the bounds of something that's watchable to, you know, a teenage audience. The sets obviously reflect that sort of darkening of the storyline, and this is sort of at the apex of that evolution in the horror of Stranger Things. All of these spikes are designed so that they can be literally lifted up with 2 people, clearly not with 1 person. 2 people can get together and in seconds lift these spikes up, carry them away, and we can roll a techno crane into place. That enormous esophageal hallway that we walked through moments ago is actually all built on a deck system so that when necessary, we are able, with just a few people, to grab a hold of the sides of it and break it apart and separate it and bring a techno crane right in through the middle. Another added challenge to the whole design process was each of these columns is meant to encapsulate and contain a different child who's being sort of psychically used to fuel the monster. You'll see here we have our dummies in currently. We had custom-made dummies to match all of our children actors. And the section right in front of them is a membrane. These are all designed in collaboration with our special effects team to be tearaway. So a person inside the column is able to push through this organic membrane and break through it and free themselves. It's pretty gruesome, but it's actually really beautiful in action. We wanted to show what the golden age of radio would have looked like. So architecturally, we took our cues from this Art Deco style that was really prominent and popular in the early days of radio. I presented to Duffer Brothers, as I always do when designing a new set for the first time, with a very lengthy lookbook that showed them all of my ideas. And in that lookbook, one of the images that they really responded to was a picture of the exterior of an old radio station. And that's the radio station that as kids, we would drive by and see. And it was part of the inspiration for writing the set into the script. They were gracious enough to let my supervising art director, Sean Brennan, and I come and pay them a quick visit. There's all kinds of little details that were very specific to the functioning of a radio station that I might not have necessarily considered, even down to something as mundane as this copper stripping on the floor. This was all part of a grounding system because there's obviously a great deal of electrical current running through a radio station. The DJ booth we knew would be central to our business in the radio station. We talked to a lot of folks who had personal experience as broadcasters back in the time period to make sure that everything we have electronically and the way we laid it out is as accurate as it can be. The history is also present in the design here and in the set. You can see obviously the bones of the set are this Art Deco era radio station, but kind of slowly became Hawkins rock radio station. We really wanted to make a space that was continuous with the overall vibe of our show, which is colors are saturated, but tones are muted, and there's a texture to everything. Even the corner of a wall, this is not necessarily the most beautiful thing in the world, but as a design choice, it sort of informs the overall lived-inness of the world of Stranger Things. All of these are sort of these transmitters. We couldn't buy this stuff, so we painstakingly surveyed all of it, and we were able to recreate down to like rivets and logos.
It's an exciting day for me, your friend, entertainer, and DJ Robin Buckley. Nice to meet you, AKA Rockin' Robin.
Over here in our kitchen, we knew that we needed a space for our characters to hang out and refuel, so we kind of repurposed what is essentially like the machine shop of our radio station. And this is another place where our set deck team shines and our graphics team really shines. We will literally go and buy a lot off of eBay of original 40-year-old cheese puffs, cheese curls. And when that is not possible, we always make sure that we recreate our boxes accurately. We had another very specific scripted element where our gang needed to have a secret hideout. We have this mechanical room that you enter into, and it doesn't go anywhere. This door goes back out into the first floor, but we needed a secret door to get us into the gang's secret lair in the basement. So came up with this idea. And voila, our entry into the basement set. We were able to build from the ground up the entire exterior radio station, which was a massive undertaking. And we even built the bottom 60 feet of the transmission tower because it factors in pretty heavily into the action. So I just wanted to take a quick minute to show you guys the upper portions of our radio tower, which we have here on stage. As you can see, we've built the middle and top of our towers, all out of steel. Our actors are climbing up them in these very intense climactic scenes. And again, you can see we're covering the towers with vines because, of course, we have to have our tower in the upside down as well as in the right side up. So now we're in the Hawkins Lab basement tank lab. Conspicuously absent is our tank. We are actually in the process of running special effects tests on it because, naturally we have to blow the glass out of it and have water flood out into our set. As you can see, we are in the upside down for the first time in Hawkins Lab basement. These are our tried and true vines. This is a medium vine. These are our little vines. Essentially, the core of these is just a pool noodle, like what you would play with in the summertime. And inside that, there's a metal wire armature that allows them to be manipulated. And then around the outside, we wrap a sort of resin-soaked fabric that then gets painted with tinted rubberized paints, which create this kind of permanent shine and make them very cleanable, which is essential because film sets get very dirty and dusty. Additionally, here you can see our scenic department comes and this very essential finishing touch to making the vines feel like they are actually growing on the surfaces.
Might be time to get a maid, Wheeler.
And I think at some point, our special effects department told me that we had just hundreds of miles of vines. Evidently, we actually were a big boon to the pool noodle industry generally, and maybe one specific manufacturers of pool noodles are still around today because of the upside down vinage. As with everything upside down related, there's always a layer of visual effects that lends everything a little more gravity than what it may look like in a sort of just a brightly lit working environment. So it may not seem like the realest thing in the world right now, but once lighting and special effects atmosphere, and then of course a visual effects layer gets added to it all, that's what really brings it to life.
Oh shit. That's not good.
We are in the hallways of Hawkins Lab. Has been part of the show since the very beginning of the series. This season, the lab is in the upside down and it's in a very uniquely supernatural state. So one of our biggest challenges this season was trying to figure out how do we represent a building melting in a supernatural way. And to that end, we arrived at this. The building is sort of melting from the top down. We designed our hallways in a way where as you're progressing through the sets, the melt is getting more and more severe. So one of the things that was exciting for us this season was that we are going to be able to finally build Hawkins Lab on stage. And previously we've had to work within the confines of the practical location. And it was important to us that we be faithful to the practical location that we've all come to know and love. All of the architectural conditions are a dead match to the location, only obviously with the added surreal madness of the melt. If you look out here, we have what's called a brise-soleil panel, which is essentially these giant metal panels. They're kind of a really essential aesthetic element of the building, and actually one of the reasons why we chose the location to begin with, and I think why it's so iconic. And we were fortunate enough to be able to harvest the actual panels from our location, which sadly has been demolished. We spent months drawing and playing with different materials and trying to decide how are we going to create these big organic shapes. All of these walls are actually 2 to 3 feet of foam, which our sculptors then came in and carved directly into for then pouring various foams over top of those to kind of get these more natural undulations and puddles and pools. And I was particularly interested in references of these sort of bubbling natural mud pits that you see in different places in the world. So that ended up being a sort of guiding reference for the finished look of the melt, of the goo as we've come to call it. We have many different material finishes. So you've got the metal melting, and in some instances we've got the plastic of the lights melting. So it was a lot of fun for our paint department to figure out how to represent all of those different materials in their melted form. Oftentimes, the director or cinematographer, they want to get something interesting in the foreground. To that end, we've got a good dozen of these that, on a moment's notice, we can kind of shift it and get it in front of camera, reposition it, affix it to the ceiling, and now you've got some interesting foreground. Because the nature of the architecture inside Hawkins Lab, it's very sort of monotonous, and each floor is essentially the same as the floor below it. So to be able to kind of sell this space as multiple different levels of the lab, it was necessary to make elements like this that are movable. Thought it was worth making a brief stop here. This is our Melty set, and what makes this one particularly special is this is one of 2 sets. We have a scene in which a couple of our characters are trapped inside a room and the walls start to actively melt. This is the after version of that set where everything has dried and the day is saved, but we also have the water retaining set that was designed by special effects to hold thousands of gallons of the goo in an active melt scene. This is the set that corresponds to the solidified Melty goo set. Up there you can see the tank. There were 6 of those tanks ready to pump 13,000 gallons of goo into this set with our actors sloshing around in it. Prior to this season, we've only seen Hawkins Lab Roof from aerial shots. This season, it was essential that we be able to get up on the roof. And this, I think, is a really excellent example of the things that I enjoy the most in terms of the creative construction of this stuff. It's equally impressive to me as a designer that we have craftspeople who can carve these beautiful, surreal sculptures, and then we have craftspeople simultaneously who are recreating, to the most subtle textural detail, the actual reality of what's going on at the location. Even something as sort of humble as the floor here required quite a lot of thought and craftsmanship to recreate the sort of layers of years and years of a building sort of deteriorating in the elements. We're stepping in now to what is essentially downtown Hawkins. which we know and love from previous seasons, but this year the military has shut it down. And you can see the cataclysmic rift situation of season 4 left the town in shambles. Our building facades here, we directly one-for-one recreated our downtown block from location in Jackson, Georgia. And now the military has gone to great lengths to create an access port into the Upside Down. My first thought went to my experiences in New York. When you see historic buildings that are being preserved, when a facade needs to be preserved, oftentimes you'll see this enormous steel architecture that's sort of built around the historical facade in order to retain it while work is done on the inside. This architectural arch we have here, that is a giant supernatural membrane gate into the Upside Down. So it was important for us to make something obviously that looks really interesting and has a heaviness and shows without any uncertainty a very intense cold military presence. All of our designs are based on research into what these sort of mobile and modular military installations look like when the military is setting up a temporary operation in a foreign country, in a war zone, or just generally anywhere in a disaster area. And we are always working within the realm of budgetary realities. We essentially bought and reclad and purpose fit all of these old shipping containers with military hardware. And this is the first time we've ever done such a large and like semi-permanent blue screen. As you can see, this giant blue wall, also built of shipping containers. That is essentially allowing VFX to extend the world of Hawkins beyond our backlots. We knew that quite a lot of our business here was going to be at night, and we always collaborate very closely with the camera department, with the lighting department, to figure out what's going to kind of work best for everybody so that we're getting the most interesting, most period appropriate, practical lighting that we can to have on camera and simultaneously give them the motivation they need to light a massive night scene, which is no small feat, obviously. And we knew we wanted Hummers. Hummers were actually fairly new to the middle 80s, and all of the accoutrement on the Hummer, all of that stuff was painstakingly found to make sure that even the vehicles that our characters are driving around in are as period correct as they possibly can be. Way back in the beginning of Stranger Things, we actually ended up landing on Jackson, Georgia, because the architecture as it existed was still pretty damn near a time capsule. So we had to obviously redress windows, we had to add some details to the facades. Over here, we've got Royal Furniture Co., named in honor of Jess Royal, who has been with me and been the set decorator on the show since the beginning as well. Stranger Things has to pay homage to the electronics giant of the 80s, Radio Shack. It briefly moved over to the mall, but actually this season we get to kind of bring it back and they're reopening in downtown Hawkins.
The Radio Shack. If we move quick enough, I think we can make it. Get into the tunnels and get the hell out of here.
Stranger Things has always been especially gratifying as a production designer, and in so many ways is the type of project you dream of.